So back by popular demand, a lot of you guys have asked for more bank fishing baits. So today what I want to talk about is wintertime bank fishing baits, and we're getting into this pre-spawn type of period. I know right now it's pretty cold across the country, but really soon you're going to have fish that are going to be coming to you. And the really big thing that's important is you pond guys. You pond guys, your water warms up super fast compared to any of the other bodies of water around here. So this video is going to relate to you pond guys and you guys that are bank fishing, and I'm going to break down some of my top baits, probably top 5 baits that work extremely well this time of year for those of you guys that don't have a boat but still love to get out there on the water. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss this video. So it's always tough figuring out what baits you want to throw while you're fishing from the bank because they're super expensive, and if you get one caught, you really can't go get it. I mean, I've done it before. I've gone swimming for a ton of baits, but it sucks, right? Especially if you live down here in South Carolina or Florida or something, there's alligators. So some of the baits that you have to think about are baits that you can throw that aren't going to get hung up, but are still going to catch fish, and that you can fish pretty much around a lot of different types of cover. And this time of year, it's tough because it's harder to get fish to react a lot of times, and you have fish coming up shallow, which is good because that means you're not having to cast super far out a lot of times. You can kind of parallel the bank, cast at like 45-degree angles, and start to get away with it a little bit more. But there's always that risk of losing baits on the bank. And so the first bait that I want to talk about is going to be one that you'll be able to tell as soon as I pick the box up. It's going to be Lipless Crankbaits. Whether you live in Pennsylvania, whether you live in South Carolina, Florida, it doesn't matter. A Lipless Crankbait is just a phenomenal bait to get bit in the wintertime and in that pre-spawn period. And if I could pick a couple colors for you guys, it's going to be this Fire Tiger color. This is a 6 cent Snatch, but I also like a 6 cents Duke or the Quake. They're all really good options. The LV 500 is a great option, and I'll have all that stuff linked down below as always. And so I like this color, and then I like a Shad type of color. And the reason is because this time of year we're getting a lot of influx of water. We're getting a lot of rain, we're getting a lot of snow melt, we're getting a lot of runoff. It doesn't matter. That water's coming up, and generally it's a little bit dirtier this time of year. So I like to go with colors that kind of stick out a little bit more. You can go with your Chartreuses a little bit more. And the key is how you're going to fish this bait. Instead of doing just a straight retrieve with this bait, what I like to do a lot of times this time of year is either reel and stop it or hop it along the bottom. Do something that varies that retrieve to slow it down a little bit. Especially if you have a rocky bottom in your pond or wherever body of water you're fishing. If you can fire that baby out there, let it hit the bottom and yo-yo it off the bottom, you will get a ton of bites. But even when that water is super frigid, for some reason, the sound of a lipless crankbait really just fires those fish up. So the next bait is in the same category, but it's going to be a flat-sided crankbait. It's going to be one of these baits that really doesn't have a ton of action. And when you're fishing along the bank, you want something that's going to deflect and kind of get away from cover. And that's what you get with a lot of these flat-sided crankbaits. This is a new one coming out by 6 cents. This is actually their pressure series. If I can get it unstuck from there. Super sweet little bait. A frit side is also a great bait, but it's just a really non-intrusive bait that you can cover a ton of water with. And even when you have super cold conditions, they will still eat the fire out of that bait. And this is like the only crankbait that you guys fishing from the bank can really get away with throwing, because you're fishing along the bank. Normally, if you're out in a boat, you're casting toward the shallow water and bringing it deep, but you guys are casting it out deeper and bringing it shallower. And ponds just most oftentimes aren't super deep anyway, and so you're relying on baits that are a little bit shallower. And so this is a great bait for when you get a sunny afternoon like we have today, to just cast it along the bank, cast it at a 45 and bring it along that bank. And what's really going to be important is when you see any types of wood in the water, whether it be a stump, a laydown, a big rock, anything that those fish can kind of gravitate to. And you pond guys, it can be something as minuscule as a stick, especially if you look at your pond and there's not much there. Little things mean big things for those fish. They want to be on anything that they can get on, and making repetitive casts with this and just getting it to deflect the right way can really be a great way to catch some really big fish in the bank fishing season. And this bait will work even if you have grass in your pond. So if you have a lot of hydrilla, if you have a lot of milfoil, eelgrass, you can still pull this bait through there and get a ton of bites by getting it to react by snapping it free from that grass. I've caught so many fish on these baits doing just that. But that is another great option, and you can fish both of those on the same rod. Because when you guys are fishing from the bank, it's tough to carry multiple rods. And so most of the baits that I'm gonna talk about, you can all fish on the exact same rod. And I like a 7-foot Arc Essence, it's like a composite style rod. It's a crankbait style rod, and it does a really, really good job at loading up and giving those fish a cushion, but still having the power, even if you're fishing a chatterbait or a spinnerbait or something, to really drive that hook home. I'm going to talk about the next two baits together because I think they're really in the same category and really apply. And again, you can fish these on the exact same rod that I talked about with these other baits, which I will have linked down below. But it's going to be a spinnerbait and a chatterbait. And what I want you to notice is the color and the design of these two chatterbaits. So this is a Z-Man jackhammer. They just came out with the Evo at iCast. The Evo does a great job as well, which I will again have linked down below. But it has a brighter color body because, again, we're getting that influx of water. Water's getting a little bit dirtier, and you want those fish to be able to see those baits. And the cool thing about a red color is it's still fairly natural because it imitates a lot of crayfish colors, and it's something that they've seen. But black and blue will also do a great job. Chartreuse and white is also really great if you have a lot of shad or have a lot of bluegill in your bodies of water. Even Bhite Delight, great color. But I like something that stands out in that little bit dirtier water, and a red color does a great job of that. And then you also have, this is a Booyah covert spinnerbait because it has this big thumping blade on there. I can fish it really, really slow, and the key is I can fish it really, really shallow or really, really deep. And that is one of my favorite baits for fishing up around cover or just going down the bank and throwing, just because it does such a great job at fishing all different depths. And you can see I have a Z-Man diesel minnow on the back of that, and that's exactly what I would put on the back of this chatterbait. And the key is I like to run a chatterbait in a 3/8 ounce when I'm fishing from the bank because I can keep it up off the bottom and control that depth a little bit more. It almost seems like if I go to a half, it almost is forcing me to get down on the bottom too much, and that's when I end up losing them. And so if you're fishing around a bare bank, I like to go with the chatterbait a little bit more to try to get it to deflect because that jackhammer and that Evo, they have that erratic action, versus if I'm fishing around more cover, I like to go to the spinnerbait a little bit more because it tends to go over top of cover better, whereas we all know a chatterbait sometimes likes to roll and get stuck on it. And I really don't want you guys losing $15 baits because that really sucks and it hurts the bank. And so that's why I like the Evo for you guys, because the Evo is only $9.99. This is the jackhammer is like $16, and so you can kind of get a little bit more bang for your buck, get two for almost the price of one, and that way if you are breaking them off, you can actually have a little bit of a cushion there. But that covert spinnerbait, super, super awesome option. I like to pair these with like 15-pound fluorocarbon. Same thing with all the crankbaits that I was listing too. It's a great option to have, you know, like one reel that does everything for you guys, because you don't want to be changing a lot of things out when you're walking along the bank. I always hated doing that when I did it. And so finding a combo that works really, really good for what you're throwing is just the best option. And that 15-pound is going to do a great job at allowing you to get some of these baits to depth, but not have you break stuff off. If you're fishing 10, a lot of times and you get something stuck, even if it's on a little baby stick, you'll end up breaking it off, whereas opposed to that 15-pound will really give you a little bit more lean pressure to kind of pull baits off the bottom. So the last bait that I like to fish from the bank this time of year is going to be swim baits. And I Texas rig them a lot of times with a Trocar weedless belly weighted hook or a ZWG style hook from Z-Man, something that allows me to fish it weedless. This is a diesel minnow, but Kitex work extremely, extremely well, and that 3.8 to a 4.3 6 cents Divine swim baits work extremely well. Or if you're a guy that's living on a fishery that has a lot of giant fish, fishing a bigger size swim bait, maybe like a Z-Man Mulletron, or going to that Megabass Mag Draft, some of those bigger style swim baits, but doing it on a hook that is a Texas rig style hook where it's going to be a little bit weedless, so that way you can fish it around cover, is a great, great option, or just being aware of where your bait's at in the water. But if you guys have a cleaner water in your body of water, say you live in reservoirs and you're fishing along the reservoirs, swim baits are a phenomenal option. Even if you live in some dirtier water and you have like flat, calm conditions where, you know, it's really tough to get a bite because it's flat, calm, it's sunny, and you think those fish are really, really pressured, and you know you're around an area where there's fish, but you're just not getting bit. That's when you can go to a swim bait and really have an opportunity to catch some of those fish. But you'll notice I didn't list a jig. I didn't list any baits where I'm moving it along the bottom, because that's not what this time of year is all about. This time of year is all about covering water, finding those active fish, and catching those fish as they are coming to you. And that's why I like to keep moving baits in my hand, because you can make a lap around the pond once, and if that sun's out, go back around and you'll have an opportunity to catch those fish again, because this time of year they are constantly moving and constantly coming to you if you can find the right areas. So keep those tips in mind. Hopefully that helps you guys when you're out there bank fishing a little bit more. If you're a guy that's fishing a lot of spinning reels from the bank and you want to learn a little bit more about that, check out this video up here where I'm going to have the #1 spinning reel trick that I think you guys need to know, where I break down braid to a leader and why I think you should have it. So check that video out if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to follow on with the content. But thank you guys so much. God bless, and I hope to see you guys out there on the water.